everyone, my name is Timothy Lee Grant, and in my last video I talked about variables in Python. So now, going forward with that idea of just playing with the language in order to learn, let's build something really simple. Let's build a program that will be able to count from whatever. Let's start off by saying 1 to 10. Let's just have a program that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then stops. Okay, something simple, and then we'll make it a little bit more complicated. And along this path, we're going to learn some key concepts in programming, and you're going to be able to use those building blocks to create more and more complicated and complex software. So here is our old program right here that we were using for variables, right? And so we are going to delete this. That's what we did in the last video. So now we are going to create a program that will just print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now the first way that you might think about this is print and then 1, right? So we did print 1 and print 2, and then we can just copy this. So copy, whoops. Delete this. Copy, paste. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we will need to go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we can see where the problem is coming. 10. Okay. Now let's just play this and see what happens. I think it's fairly obvious what's going to happen. It's going to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10. Yep, and that's in fact what we see. We see down here in the terminal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Cool. As you can also tell, that took way too long. And what if we want to count to 1,000,000? And also, what if we want things to be able to be more dynamic? And what I mean by dynamic is that you can change it while you're actually running the program. Because right here, okay, what if now we want to change this to be 12 or like 88, right? Okay, well then we have to physically go in there and change it. So this isn't really a good way to go about doing this. Let's figure out how we can use that variable. So in the last video, I talked about how you can use like my variable, and we can set that equal to some number like 1. Okay. Then what we can do is we can print my var. And then if you do that, it goes to 1 down here, has that 1. Okay, so how might we be able to utilize this? Now, in programming, we have this cool thing called a loop. Okay, so there's different types. There's a for loop, there's a while loop, there's a do while, all of these different types of loops. We're just going to stick with a for loop. And in most cases, you can take a for loop and change it into a while loop, and you can go back and forth between them. So we're going to first start with a for loop, and then later on we can figure out while loops. In this video, we'll also address the while loop. I'll show you how to take something from a for loop and turn it into a while loop. So we'll get both loops, but to start off, let's just look at a for loop. Okay, so the syntax is for I in, and then we will need to figure out what this is right here. Range, and then 10, and we'll just see what happens. So we're gonna print, and you don't need to know what is happening right now. We're gonna see what happens and then investigate. And there's going to be some problems, and we're going to figure out like, oh, why did it only print to 9? Why not 10? So we'll see what happens. Okay, let's actually delete this right here. There we go. Okay, so now press play. Okay, so now comes the fun part. Now is the investigation part. What happened? What went on? Okay, so we see it printed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Didn't go to 10. Okay, so this kind of gives us a clue of what's happening. We know that this print statement takes in a single thing, and we also know that it will take in that thing and print it to the console. Okay, so now we see that 10 things are being printed, and it's printing 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we know that this print statement is taking in 0, and then it's taking in 1, and then it's taking in 2. Okay, and we also remember that we can use variables. So now this I is probably a variable, which it is. Okay, so I is a variable, and it's being fed into the print statement, and it's changing. Okay, so this syntax right here, what's going on is we're declaring the variable right here. And what declaring a variable means is just like telling the program this variable exists. Because if I were, let me show you this. Print and then my var, like I just had, right? There's a problem with this. So let's try it. Uh-oh. Something just happened. It says name my var is not defined. And what that means is Python saying, wait, hold on a second. No. This my var right here, I don't know what that is. Is that a variable? Is that what's going on here? So it doesn't know what to do with this. So when we have this I right here, this is kind of like declaring it. This is saying like, hey, Python, I exist. This I exists. Now, if I did my var, so my var equals to, and then a string variable, so this is a string. And now if I run it, there's no problem. See? And now we can investigate. Okay, cool. We just changed something. Now let's continue to investigate. So now, 0, this is a string. Okay, interesting. So it comes here, goes to this statement. Remember, it's executed sequentially. So it comes up here, it assigns this string, this thing, which is a string, which is a sequential character, so THIS space, it assigns it into this variable. So at this point, you've declared my var. That means you told Python, hey, Python, my var exists, it is a variable, and you've also told it what it equals, and you say it equals this. So now Python's like, bro, I got you. I know what this my var is. I can use it now. Okay, so then it comes down to here. And now what's going to happen is it comes and says, okay, I exists for I in range. And then something. And then the colon. Okay. So what is this line? What this line does is it declares this I, and then it assigns it a value. So this range function it will take in one argument. Actually, it'll take in 3 arguments, but right now it only takes in 1 argument. And so it will take in this number right here. If I did something like string, let's just say my var, right? If I did that, it's not going to work because it's not expecting a string. See, it says it needs to be an integer. Remember last time we were talking about integers, it's a whole number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it needs to be a whole number. It can't be 10.5. And what it's going to do is it's going to go from 0 up to that number. And it's going to give I, each time this loop comes around, so it's going to come here, come here, come here, and then go back up here. So first off, it's going to start at 0. It's going to assign I the value 0. Then it's going to come down here. Now I is 0. It prints it. Then it comes down here. My var is equal to this. So then it prints it. Okay, that's what we see here. Then it comes back up to here. And now, all of a sudden, and this was 10 in here. So then, all of a sudden, now it's going, this statement here is going to take the next value, which it just got done with 0, so now it's going to get the value of 1. So then it's 1, then it comes down here, I is now equal to 1. It prints that value, which is what we see here. It prints 1, and then comes down to my var, which my var still has been unchanged. It is still, this is a string, so then it prints this is a string, and then comes down here and or back up to here, and so then it keeps going until we've reached the end, which is this 10 value. And now why did it not actually go to 10? So the range function, that's just the way that it works, essentially, is that it will go like from, it starts at 0, and then it goes all the way to 9. So it's this number minus 1. It's kind of, when you're learning programming, it's kind of something that you have to get used to. There's all of these idiosyncrasies. I don't know how to say it. Anyways, there's all of these like kind of strange things that you just need to learn. And as you play with the language, as I mentioned last time, you're gonna start to be like, okay, this range function. Now, I know it's going to start at 0, and I know that it's going to end at 1 less than what I want. So I said that I want to print out 0 to 10. So how am I going to do that? I know that it's going to end at the value that I give it, minus 1. So I'm just going to put 11. And there we go. We've completed our goal. So we're done. We're done. Okay. Well, let's just keep playing with this. Let's instead of having this number like hard coded, and what hard coded means is that I went in there and I just pushed 11. Let's make it where it's a variable. Let's have this my var, and we've already seen that my var, if we put a string in there, it's not going to work. This is going to give an error. Bam. String object cannot be interpreted as an integer. So that means this needs to be an integer. What was an integer? Well, from last time we learned that it was either like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, -5, -10, 1 billion, something like that. So I'm going to put an integer. 2 is an integer. Okay, let's see what happens. 0 and 1. Okay, that's kind of what we expected, right? Started at 0, and then it it was assigned I as 0, printed it, then it went back up here. It assigned I as as 1, printed it, then came up here and said, oh, we've hit the end, and then exited. Again, it didn't hit 2, which is what we assigned here, because this range function, it's just the way it works. It's a little bit confusing. Just keep working with it. Just keep using the range function. And all of a sudden, you're going to start to just know, like, okay, whatever value I put in there, it's going to go to the 1 minus that. Now, the reason for this is it's actually pretty helpful in the future, because there's this idea of indexing arrays, and that's why it's done. So it's actually pretty helpful, but when you first learn programming, it's like, why do they do it this way? This sucks. There's a reason for it, but you just, as of right now, you just need to know, like, okay, the range function prints to the -1 of whatever you put in there. And now there is something like this range function, I said, accepts 3 values, so I just kind of want to show you that. So you can do a start equals 0, okay. Stop equals, where do we want to stop? We want to stop at 11, and then jump equals 2. Okay, so this range function actually accepts 3. You can either give 1 or 2 or 3 parameters, is what it's called. We've never seen a parameter before. Well, we have. This print actually takes 1 parameter. That's what I was thing, okay? The thing is the parameter. Okay, so this print statement takes 1 parameter. This range statement can take 1 or 2 or 3 parameters. Now, what's going to happen is you can have, let's go, if you give it the 1, we already saw what happened when you give it the 1. It starts automatically at 0. It assumes that you want 0, to start at 0. And then it stops at the number that you give it. If you only give it 1 parameter, it will stop at that 1 parameter. And then it iterates from, and it increases, meaning, that's what I mean by iterating. It iterates, each time it iterates, it plus 1s, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It adds 1, increases the value of I by 1. Okay. So you can actually give it, you have much more power actually than just that, because you can actually tell it where you want it to start, where you want it to stop, and by how much you want it to increase each time. So start, this is the syntax, stop, and then jump. Okay, so let's press the play button, see what happens, and then we can do our investigation once more. Okay, so 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Oh. Okay, and because I named these variables the way you would kind of expect, the functionality worked similar to how you would probably imagine it. So it started the first parameter, and each parameter is separated by this comma right here. So the first parameter, if you give it 3 parameters, it will say, okay, you don't want me to assume the start location. You don't want me to assume the stop the stop location is never assumed, but you don't want me to assume the jump location or the jump value. Now it takes in those 3 and says, okay, I'm going to start wherever you want me to. You told me you want to start at 0. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start at 0. And we see here, it did. And then it says, okay, well, you also gave me a jump value. You also told me how much you want me to jump. Okay. Then now I'm not going to assume that you want me to increase the value each time by 1. I'm going to take whatever you said, and we said we want to increase it by 2. So all of a sudden we have 0, and it didn't go 0 to 1, it went 0 to 2. Because we told it, hey, don't assume, hey, you, don't assume that you, and by you I mean range function. Hey, range function, don't assume that I want you to increase this I by 1 each time that this function iterates. Listen to what I have to say, and I say 2. So then it comes, okay, 2, and then increases to 4, then increases 6, then increases 8, then 10, and then it stops because it doesn't hit the next one. So as we said before, it stops at the 1 minus that. So it's not going to hit, well, it wouldn't in this case, but let me just show 12, right? So it's still not going to hit 12 because it doesn't hit, or it doesn't allow another iteration of the stop condition, the stop number. And then just keep playing around, right? Let's say that we want the start to be 1. We can see, okay, so it goes 1, and then it comes back up here, and then it says, all right, increase by 2, which it's now 3, and then it comes back up, it's I is now 3, and it says, okay, well, actually, I want you to be increased by 2, so it goes up to 5. We can see that, and then it hits 11 because it still has not hit that stop condition. And then once it hits 11, then it goes, okay, well, I want you to increase by 2 more. So it goes up to 13, and then 13 is greater than or equal to this stop condition, so then it just stops. Now, when I did that print statement, so print doing work here. So if you want a program to do something, and in programming, that something can be whatever you want. Right now, we're just learning the very basic skills. So what doing work actually means doesn't matter. You can do something. In this case, we're just printing something. But an example that you might want to do is blink an LED light, or you might want to send data to a server, or you might want to toggle on or off something like an input pin or whatever it is. So don't be worried about what doing work actually means. All you need to know is that you're doing some kind of work. So if you want to kind of control how many times something happens, like an LED turns on or turns off or something like that, what you can do is, okay, well, I want it to turn on 5 times. So now let's think about, okay, well, actually, let's say that you want to send data 5 times. So I'm going to have this here, and this is send data, sending data. So let's just say, okay, that this statement right here, it actually does send data to a server. Or you are a server and it sends data back to the client. Let's just say that. Okay, and you want to send data 5 times. Okay, well, you can say, okay, I want to start at, what do you want to start at? You want to start at 0. And then where do you want to stop? You want to stop at 5. And with this, again, it takes a little bit of time to think about things. I said I want to send data 5 times. It's going to start at 0, so that did it 1 time. Then then it goes to 1, then 2, then 3, and then stops at 4. Or I should say it does 4 and then hits the stop condition, because now we have that in our vocabulary. So it did the work 5 times in total. So we start at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hit the stop condition. So we did something 5 times. If you want to do something 6 times, you would actually put a 6 in this stop position. And then it's going to do it 0 time, or it's going to do it 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and then hit the stop condition. So it did work 6 times. It sent data 6 times. So actually the jump is now 1. So we do that. So it sent data once on the 0th time. Then it sent data again on the first time. It sent data again on the second time, third, fourth, fifth. Okay. So this is kind of the idea of how you can do work multiple times. And as I said, like, once we get more advanced in programming, we're going to actually be able to do work or send data or whatever we want to do. But right now, we're just learning the building blocks. We're just learning the basics. So now let's do that second form of loops that I was talking about. So the syntax for that, while, and then something. Okay. So while, and then we need a condition. So we need to figure out what a condition is. So I is greater or less than stop. Okay. So print I. Okay. So while I is less than stop. Now, what this while statement will do is take in an expression that can evaluate to a true or a false. So what's going to happen is while, okay, and then it's going to keep going as long as this statement evaluates to true. So it's going to come, it's going to check, is I less than stop? Yes or no? If yes, then it's going to go in and do one loop. It's going to come back up and then check, hey, is I still less than stop? If it is, great. Then we go and do the loop again. And we keep going until this statement evaluates to a false statement. So there's actually 2 problems with what's going on here. First off, this I. We declared it, but we declared it up here. And what happens is, once we, do you see this indentation here? What that means is this for statement, this for loop, how do you tell what you want to be done over and over and over? How do you tell what you want the computer to iterate over? Well, in Python, it goes by indentation. So after this colon right here, it's going to look for everything that is indented over, and it's going to say, okay, this is part of this for loop statement. This is also part of this for loop statement because their indentation is the same. So if I had a third thing here, print and then something else. okay, it's going to come here. It's going to say this is part of the statement, this is part of the statement, this is part of the statement. Then it's going to come back up here and then go and say, okay, well, I has not hit the stop condition yet, so I'm going to go back here, back here, back here, then evaluate, then back here, back here, back here. I keep doing that. Okay. Then this while loop, you see, is not indented. Let me show you. Like if I did print and then I am outside of the for loop. So this print statement does not belong in the for loop. So what's going to happen is comes here, comes here, comes here, comes here, and then jumps back up here because the indentation says that it is not part of that for loop. Now, if I did that, then it would come all the way here. It would execute this line of code and then jump back up and then come back down here, do this one, this one, this one, this one, and then jump back up and then do these and then jump back up. Okay, but if I have it like this, that's not part of the for loop. So it will keep doing, what's going to happen is this for loop will keep doing these three statements until the stop condition is hit. Then it comes down, says, okay, stop condition is hit. Okay, great. Now I get to execute the next thing in the program, which is this. It's outside of the it's outside of the for loop. That's what's going to get hit. So it hits this print statement. It prints this string to the console, and then it will come down to this while loop. Now, okay, this while loop suspiciously has the same colon that this for loop has, and exact same thing. So what we need to do is we need to, there we go, have this print indented. That means I am part of what? You're part of this while loop. Okay. And then if I had another print statement, print, we are inside of the while loop. Okay. And then if I did this, so this is inside the while loop because it is part of the indentation, which is once you have that colon, it says, okay, whatever is indented based off of this colon is going to be included in the while loop, and then anything outside of it is going to be considered not part of the while loop. Now, what if I did something like this? That's just an error. Python says, I don't know what to do with this. It's syntactically wrong, which means it doesn't have anything, it doesn't follow the rules of the language. So I'm not going to, I have no idea what to do. I can't execute this because it doesn't make sense to me. This makes sense to me. It means it's part of the while loop. This also makes sense to me. It means it's outside of the while loop. I do the while loop. I start up here, I go down, 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 down. I come here, and now I know that I'm going to do a while loop. What's part of the while loop? All of this. Okay, good. And then once I finish this while loop, I'm going to do the next block, which is this right here. Then I'm going to come down. Oh, the program ended. I'm done. So that's how you know what is part of the actual loop. All right, back to the while loop. So this I kind of belongs to this for loop. And the reason is because I said this in this for statement, the I is declared. And that says, hey, function, I'm going to use something called I. But once the for loop ends, it doesn't need this I anymore. So it doesn't know what I is. And so if we run this, we're going to get an error. Okay, so actually we got multiple errors. There we go. So it needs to know, like, okay, what actually is I? So I'm going to declare I equals 0. And now, while 0 is less than stop. And now, if you see the indentation, stop right here is the same indentation as the while. And what that will tell you is, okay, stop is actually a valid, while kind of knows about stop because it's part of, it's the same indentation. If I do like that my var is declared up here. So if I declare like new var equals 0, and then if I try to use new var, and no, you can't do that because it's declared in this for loop, and you have to have the program, when it executes each line of code, it needs to know, like, hey, there is this I variable. So now we have the I right here. The other thing that happened is we just got a bunch of 5. So this I variable, it needs to increase to eventually hit a stop condition. So I, and then equals I plus 1. Okay. So this statement is good. So we can press this. There we go. Okay. So now comes the investigation. Okay, what's going on? So we have up here, we have this 0, send some data, something else, and then comes back up to here, 1, send data, something else, 2, 3, 4, all the way to the stop condition, which is 5. Now, then it says that it's done executing this for loop statement, that block of code. So then it goes to the next line, which is this. So it printed something else right here. It went back up, it evaluated, it says, okay, I hit the stop condition. It went to print, or to execute the next line of code, which is, I finished this for loop. And you can even see I can expand and contract this. So this actually makes it a lot more clear. It hits this line, this line, this line, this line, this line, and then it does this for loop, keeps going until it hits the stop, and then it hits this line of code, which is exactly what happens. It does whatever is in that for loop, which is right here, does all of that, and then comes and says, okay, I am outside of the for loop. So it prints this statement to the console, and then says, I finished this. Then it comes down here to the next line, nothing. Then it comes here, it says, okay, there is a variable called I. I know about this variable now. I can use it. Cool. What is I? I is 0. Okay, I know what I is now. So while I is less than stop. So it evaluates this. Oh, I can put parentheses around it. It evaluates this statement and says, is this true or is it false? And it has to evaluate to either true or false. So 0 is less than 6. Is that a true statement or a false statement? It is a true statement. So therefore, we are going to perform the operations inside the while loop. And if I expand this, you can also see what is part of the while loop, what is not. But again, Python goes by indentation, so it's indented all of this, which is within the indentation is part of the while loop. If I do that, nope, Python doesn't know what to do. It's invalid. It has to be the same indentation length. So it goes and it prints I. And what is I? I was 0. Okay. Then comes down to this line of code. And then it says, okay, I is equal to, okay, I is a variable I can change. We can change the value of I. Just as in the last video, we did like my var equals 10, and then we changed it my var equals 99. That's fine. It takes my var, it says you're 10, and then it says my var, you are now going to change, you are now 99. So we can change variables, the value of variables, I mean. So I used to be 0, but now we're going to change it to something else. What are we going to change it to? Well, it's whatever is on the right-hand side of this equals operation. But we use I again. I thought, well, wouldn't this kind of be like undefined behavior? Because we're saying I is going to change. It's going to be something new. It is going to be itself, but we don't know what that self is. No. What happens is Python is kind of smart enough to know that, okay, this, when we're assigning a variable, it will first look to see what this evaluates to, and then assign it into I. So as of right now, I is equal to 0. So it takes 0, it adds 1 to it, and then assigns it to I. So this evaluates to 1, assigns it to I. Then what happens? It comes back up to the while loop. It says, okay, I is now equal to 1. Is I less than stop? Is it? Yep. So then come back down here, print this 1, then increment I once more. So now I is equal to 2. Then comes up here, evaluates it, says, is it equal, or is it greater than stop? Nope. Or that is a true statement. I is less than stop. So therefore, the while loop is going to continue. It comes down here, then comes up here. And then eventually, it gets to 5. So I is equal to 4. Then it increments by 1. Now I is 5. Comes up to here. Is I less than stop, which is 6? Yes, it is. 5 is less than 6. Okay, so then it comes to this line of code, prints 5, then I is incremented. Now I is equal to 6. So while this statement is true, keep doing the while loop, is 6 less than 6? No, 6 is equal to 6. So it's going to not do this while loop, and that's why it breaks out of this loop and then goes on to execute the next line of code, which is nothing. The program ends and we're done. So we can change this stop to be like 99. And so now it hits up to 98. And you can see kind of how these two are very interdependent in regards to why the range wants to stop at 1 minus that. So after seeing this, you can kind of, oh, okay, I understand why it's going to stop at 1 minus that value, because you want to be able to say greater than or equal to stop. And now if you hit that equal sign, okay. So this brings in a new concept, which is what are the different operations or comparison operations that you can have inside of this these parenthesis statements. So you can have greater than, equal to. So that means if I is greater than or equal to, or sorry, less than. That's a less than. So if I is less than or equal to this stop, then I want you to keep doing these operations. You can have greater than. If I is greater than or equal to stop, do this. Now, in this case, what's going to happen? Let's think about this. So I is 0. It's going to come down here, and then it's going to say 0. Okay, do I execute any of this while loop? Should I execute the statements in the while loop? I is 0. I greater than or equal to stop. So is 0 greater than or equal to 99? Nope, it's not. So it's not even going to do any of this inside the while loop. It's just going to go, okay, how do I, there we go. So it's going to say, all right, well, none of these values or none of these statements need to be executed. I'm just going to go to the next line of code, and then, oh, I hit the bottom. I'm done. So if we go like this, it's not even going to hit the while loop. It says, I am outside the for loop, which is this statement. Comes down here, it assigns I equal to 0. It went down, it looked at the while loop, it said, okay, this statement evaluated to false. Then it came down to line 15, and then bam, said I'm done, which is exactly what we see up here. So what are some of the other operations? There's equal equal. Now you have to be careful. If you do I equal stop, it's going to say, oh, you want me to assign the value of stop to I. Okay, so now I is equal to 99. So the equal operation or the equal evaluation is equal equal. So I equal equal stop. So before I press go, think about what's going to happen. So it's going to look and says I is equal to 0. Now it's going to check this statement and see, is it true or is it false? I is equal to stop, which is 99. Nope. So it's not going to run anything. It's going to hit this line and then go here, not do this, and then go down there. Yeah, which is exactly what we see. So now I said we want to count from 1 or from 0 to 10 with the while loop and the for loop. So let's just go back and achieve that. So let's see, we want to start where? We want to start at 0. We want to stop at 10, 11. Okay, and we want to jump by 1. So we can do it this way. It's going to start at 0. It's going to go all the way up to 10 because it's not going to hit that stop condition. Once it hits the stop condition, it stops doing this for loop and then goes down here. Now to make the while loop also do that, we come here, I is equal to 0 initially. How many times do we want it to do it? We want it to keep going until it hits the stop condition, and we want the stop condition, it's already at 11. So while I is less than stop, come here, print I, and then increase by 1. So if we do that, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is executing this for loop, and comes out here to the print statement. Then we tell Python, hey, I have this variable called I. Okay, now while this is true, keep doing the values, or to keep doing the expressions in here. And that's also what we see all the way up to 10. And then it comes, once I is assigned the value of 10, it will come increment by 1. So right now, it just hit this I, or hit this print statement with I equals 10, comes down here. So 10 plus 1 equals 11. So I, 11, is less than 11? No. So it does not continue to execute this while loop. It comes down, breaks out. So my suggestion for playing with these is try to figure out, like, try to test yourself, see what you can do. Like, hey, I want to count to 99. How do I do that? I want to count to 100. How do I do that? And see with these loops, how can you actually change from a for loop to a while loop? And there's one other component that you're probably going to need, the if statement. Okay, so let's say actually that you want to start at 2 and you want to go to 10. So like this, you start at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So to do that, well, I is now going to be 2, and you want to just do this. Okay, so that worked. But what if we want to adjust this jump? What if we want to do like we've already done up here? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Well, how are you going to do that with the while loop? The while loop doesn't really have this kind of like jump thing. It just, all the while loop does is takes in some expression, evaluates is this true or false, and then if it's true, it performs the operations within the while loop. If it's false, it does not. So we need some way within the while loop to determine, do we want to print something or do we not want to print something? And that's how we get the if statement. So if statement takes in some expression here, and then again, notice that colon. What does the colon mean? That means indentation. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's kind of the syntax for it. So we have if, and then some expression. So this is the exact same thing that we had up with this while statement. So the if statement is going to take in an expression. It's going to evaluate, does it equal true or does it equal false? If it's true, it does everything within that indentation, because we have that colon here. It says, okay, if it is true, I'm going to perform all of the operations that align with that indentation. If it's false, then I'm just going to skip it. I'm not going to do that if statement. I'm just going to come down to the whatever is outside of the print, or outside of the if statement. So how can we get this function to print everything that is even? So what we can do is if I, and then mod 2, oh boy, this is a nightmare, isn't it? that looks like a horrible statement. We'll see what happens. Oh, it worked. Okay, because it worked, that means that we have more work to do because we have to investigate why it worked. Okay, it worked. Why? So, we get this modulo operator. What on earth is that? This one is when I was first learning how to program, this was the most annoying operator imaginable. I hated this one. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. So I give you guys permission to also hate it. This one, the best way that I found to remember this is kind of like a clock. So a clock has up here it's at 0, right? Then 1, actually my screen is backwards, so this goes this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then back up to 0. That is the way that the modulo operator works, is like a clock. So what it means is that this value can only be between 0 and the number that it is moduloed by, and then it loops back up to 0. Okay, well, that wasn't explained well. Do better. All right, I will. So, I is equal at first to 2. Okay. Now 2 mod 2. So now instead of a clock at 12, what we want to do is this clock only has 0 and 1. So 0, then 1, then it goes back up to 0. Let me try to make this more like an actual clock, and then we can talk about it and discuss what's going on. So we're going to start at 0. We're going to keep increasing all the way to stop, which I actually want to reassign stop equals to 12. Let's make it 24. Okay. And then I want to, here's another concept. When you do this, like, you can change I'm just going to actually show you this one, pass. So what the pass means is just don't do anything. So effectively, it's going to come here, it's going to do nothing, it's going to come back up here, it's going to iterate through from start to stop, but each time it hits the for loop, it's not actually going to do anything. So this kind of, we've almost deleted it. Okay, so I was making this into a clock. And so now we can print this. Let's see. Oh, I meant to do mod 2 in here. So I'm just going to do print and then I mod 12. Okay. All right, here we go. So now I'm outside of the for loop. As I said, this for loop is not going to do anything. It's going to hit that pass statement over and over and over until it hits the stop condition. But this pass statement isn't going to do anything. So it's going to come down to I am outside of the for loop. It's going to come here, assign 0, I equals the value of 0, stop equals 24. Then now we know that it's going to continue to perform these operations as many times as this expression in the while loop is true. So it is going to start at 0. So I is equal to 0. And then it says divide by this 12 means once you get it, allow I to freely go until it hits up to 12. And 12, I don't want it to hit 12. I want it to reset back to 0. So I is able to increase. We see down here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then once I hits 12, we've hit 12, comes up here. 12 is still less than 24. So then it does this operation. This I is now equal to 12. But the modulo makes I, so it says, okay, I is 12, put it on a clock, and have 12 little ticks on that clock. What is I? I is equal to 0. Okay. So we want to print it. Or we want to print what? This is evaluated. It's an expression. So print takes in one expression, one parameter, which is what do you want to print? It prints 0 because this evaluates to 0. Then it comes up to here. I is incremented. Now this expression does not actually change the value of I. Okay, so all that happens here is I is used as kind of like a variable inside of an equation. It says I plus 12, we put that into the print statement. So we could say like I plus 12, and then it would take whatever I is, add 12 to it, and give that to the print statement. But it doesn't take I and increase I by 12. That would be I, it would be I equals I plus 12, like that. Now this statement is kind of complex, or not complex, but it's not very good right there inside the print statement, I mean. But this is right here is how you would increment I by 12 if you wanted to. But we don't want to do that. I plus 12, that just takes in I as a placeholder, adds 12, and then passes it to the print function. So that's the same thing that we're doing with this modulo. So it takes I, it modulos it, which puts it on a clock, and then passes that to the print statement. So when I is now 13, it will say, okay, 13 on a clock is what? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Well, that's equal to 1, right? And that's why we get this one right here. And then we put 14 in there. 14 on a clock. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 is equal to 2 on a clock. That's why we get here. And now I said you have to think about ticks on that clock. So what if I just said like 6? What's going to happen? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then once we hit the 6, it just resets back to 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like that. Okay? So, and we actually see that it did it a lot because what is actually going on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then once we've done another rotation on the clock, so 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We've hit that other rotation. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay? And then 20, it increases to 24. It says 24 is less than 24. No. So don't do this while loop again. and then stop. Okay, so this was necessary because of what we wanted to do was we wanted to do if and then something, and then we wanted to print the value of I. So we wanted to print I only when it was even. So we want this expression to evaluate to true only when I is equal to an even number. Well, on that clock, how would we kind of say that? So if we take I and we mod it with 2, what's going to happen is this 2 is only going to have 2 ticks on the clock. So that means 1 tick up here, 1 tick down here. Okay? So it's going to be either 0 or 1 and then back to 0. So this way you can have, if it's even, it's kind of weird with this. If it's even, it will be equal to 0. If it's odd, it will be equal to 1, and then it will be increased again to, so like 0 on the clock is equal to 0, okay? Then we go to 1, so 1 down here is equal to 1. So this statement is not going to be executed. Then we increment I by 1 again, so I is now 2, but on the clock it is 0. So this if statement is going to be true. So you can think about that and say, okay, that's how we're going to be able to get this to only print the even numbers. And as you see, like 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. It worked. Okay, what if we want to only print the odd numbers? Well, as I said, if 0 was the even numbers, and I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, that's equal to, what was this tick? This tick was 1, right? So if this is equal to 1, all of a sudden we're going to get our odd numbers. So you have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 10, or 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, and then ends the program. So this is how we can kind of work with the different loops in Python. My suggestion would be start playing with these. Try to create a loop to do something. Go from this number to this number and do work under certain conditions, but not under other conditions. Print everything out, see if it's what you're expecting. Then try to say, okay, well, I did it in one loop. Let me try to get the exact same output using the different styles. So from a for loop to a while loop, and play around with that. Use those if statements, use those. And this doesn't have to be like using that modulo. I hated that modulo, so I can understand why you wouldn't like that. But normally this just is like if I is equal to maybe 3 or something like that, and this 3 can be a variable. So let's just say, what would this come out to be? Like, what do you expect is going to happen? This is only going to print that when I hits that 3. So you can see, like, I'm outside of the loop, and then it comes here, and it does this 24 times, and each time it increments by 1. But this if statement only evaluates to true 1 out of those 24 times, which is I is equal to 0. Nope, that if statement isn't true. I equals 1. Nope, that if statement is true. I equals 2. Nope, that if statement is not true. I equals 3. Yes, it is. Therefore, it does the if statement. Then increments by 1. I equals 4. Nope, not true. 5, 6, all of those false. So try to, all this is, it just needs some true or false statement inside of it. So play around with this, try to get some functionality, and then switch it over to the for loop from the while loop to for loop. Just play around with that. Um, as I mentioned last time, the thing with programming is all you have to do is really spend time with it, and don't take it too seriously. I think that was another problem that I had when I was learning programming is I took things way too seriously, and I kind of freaked myself out if I didn't know exactly what was going on. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not I I I didn't want to play with it, um, because I was afraid of breaking something, or I put myself in some kind of like bad mindset that like, oh, I don't know what's going on, and therefore I won't be able to do it. Just play around with it. Like see what happens. Like what would happen if I just took away that indentation? Okay, well, there's a squiggly line. There's something wrong with it. Why? Well, this little dot right here requires something, right? Like that doesn't kind of make sense that you say if something is true. I didn't pause just there. That's kind of what you're telling the program is like if something is true, right? That doesn't make sense. Wait, what? What do you want me to do? So that's why it's an error because I don't even know what you want me to do. This is what I want you to do. And okay, so what if I just do this really weird indentation? Does that still work? Oh, it still does. And then what if I do a print 44? Oh, okay. So it only hit this one time, and it was the time that I was equal to 3. And even though the indentation was weird because it was equal with each other, it it worked. Python said, I know what you want. These two things are part of this if statement. So play around with it, figure out different. Now it's broken. We we know how to fix that. So play around with it, figure out how to move from one to another, and hopefully this video helped you understand loops a little bit more. And if you have any suggestions for me of how to better teach this material, I would love to hear it. Kind of in the same attitude as what I was just talking about with programming, my attitude with YouTube is I just need to pull the trigger and actually like start putting some videos out there, start making some tutorial videos, and hopefully with time I'll be able to improve my teaching techniques. I'll be able to find what works for people, what people like, what people don't like. So yeah, please give me feedback on how I'm doing and how I can improve. I was thinking that with this, if I just like build things, that seems to be a method that kind of works for me when I'm doing my projects, is kind of just like build a project and learn along the way instead of, okay, today I will learn if statements. Today I will learn while loops. We kind of like organically, naturally did it. And then once you once you keep progressing and pushing forward, you learn all of these concepts, and then you're able to just naturally build out a lot more of these complex ideas. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you would like to subscribe, that would be awesome. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. My name is Timothy Lee Grant, and I will see you next time.